Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Yes, friends, it is that time again. It's time for Tiger Claw Radio. I am your host, Critical Failure. Thank you for coming into the studio. Grab a chair. We're going to listen to some chip tunes. We're going to talk about some video games. Yes, because it is the Steam Summer Sale, and I have acquired new games. I am a consumer, and I like to purchase things. Let's discuss them. But we're going to start off with some chip tunes. The old 8-Bit Collective. This is the top 40 of the 8-Bit Collective that we've been working through over the past several months, as put together by Hemrock. We're talking about 40 tunes out of 8,000 plus that he listened to like a crazy person. And my hat is off to him. And it has not disappointed. All right. The next one is track 11. And this is where I run into trouble. It's where there's no tag of artist. And it's just like a bunch of letters. Wilkland Mailman -rabbits _outfits. And there's no way for me to know which of those is the artist or which of those is the song. But it's track number 11. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. You know, from listening to these tracks, Hemrock's picks, Hemrock's a lot like me in that he must dig the upbeat kind of happy feeling tracks, because I there's a lot of that in this list, and I gotta say I'm right there with you, man. Really good stuff. All right, so let's go to a little bit that I recorded a couple days ago, like in the heart of the Steam sale. Okay, this bit's being recorded on Thursday. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so the Steam sales are in full swing. And rolling into the Steam sales this year, I didn't have the big X item that I want to buy, like I usually do. Even if I'm not super excited about the Steam sales, there's usually an item or two that just tops my list, like my wish list. The way I operate a wish list is it's not the games that I wish for, it is the games that I want to remember exist. So when a Steam sale comes, you can just cruise the wish list. It takes about 5 minutes, and then more or less you know what you want to pick up. Right now, the game that tops my wish list is Keeper RL, which is on sale 20% off. It's usually $20. Now it's $16. So it's not a huge discount, but this is one of those games. That game came out in 2015, so it's been a while. It doesn't go on sale a lot. That's like the best you're going to get for Keeper RL. But that's at the top of my list, you understand? While we're on the subject, the next handful of games: Pro Wrestling Sim, 10% off. Main Event Wrestling Manager hasn't been released yet. Then I have Dead or Alive 6, which has a pretty deep discount. Dead or Alive 6 usually goes for $80. At least that's what the ticket says here. And now it's for $20. So that's a sizable discount. But, I played Dead or Alive 5 so little. I actually reinstalled it like a couple weeks ago, and I played it for a while. But I don't know. I'm not paying $20 for another Dead or Alive game. Long story short, there was no big game for me. All right? So, clicking around, I got a couple of things. Yesterday afternoon and today, I picked up a handful of games for the Capcom Arcade Archives collections. Capcom Arcade 2, when it came out, all of the games were bundled together. It was a big problem. Everybody hated it. And they have since split them up. And now they are half off for the Steam sales. So you're looking at arcade ROMs for 99 cents. With a really, I'm going to go out and say it, they did a good job on the front end. And that's a bit of a hot take for the Capcom Arcade series. I like the way they set it up. It defaults to like a weird 3D mode where like you're actually seeing a render of the arcade machine and the game appears on a 3D rendered panel, which sucks. But once I figured out how to switch that off, it became really cool. I enjoy it. So I got a handful of games for those. I'm not going to bother listing off which ones, but one of the Darkstalkers games. Darkstalkers is on the second collection, which is pretty cool. And then like several games that I just didn't recognize. And then every game that was like 1940 something. You know, the 1942 series with the top-down airplane, right? Love those games. So got a handful of those. And the big game that I'm in love with that I picked up in the Steam sale is called The Legacy: Realm of Terror. Okay, so this is a Microprose game for the PC from 1993. So we're talking about an old game. I had never heard of it before until I encountered it on Steam. And looking back, I don't even remember how I came across this. It might be like one that they just randomly put on the Steam page. But I'd hate to think that they actually hit the nail on the head and knocked it out of the park with an automated recommendation. But that might actually be the case. But anyway, if you're not familiar with this game, because I know nobody here, unless you're maybe Sean or Alex, knows what this is. It plays a lot like the original Eye of the Beholder, but instead of being a Dungeons and Dragons type thing, it looks an awful lot like the first Resident Evil game. Complete with a mansion and zombies walking around, and you got to know where to pick up the items and how to use them. And this thing is themed. It's a beautiful game. And I got to say, while I was playing it, I had some honest to goodness spooks. You know, you turn the lights down low, you really get into that horror atmosphere. And it did scary, I think, better than a lot of games today do. So that's The Legacy: Realm of Terror. It wasn't even on a very deep discount. It's normally $7. It's 35% off, so you can get it at $4.54, which I picked it up at. And gotta say, thoroughly impressed. Okay. Did I pick up anything else from the Steam sale? Hang on, let me take a look. I think that might be it. I'm looking at like my last played games. And the last thing I played prior to that was when I was, last week when I was big into Carmageddon. So I don't think I picked up anything else, which is kind of shocking. There's some good stuff over at the Bundleverse, specifically on Fanatical. But what I saw was good deals on games I already have. Specifically, they had one where like Doom and Quake showed up. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can dig this up over on Fanatical. I don't report on the Bundleverse too much, but there was another game I bought. I bought one. Oh man, this is gonna bother me. All right, let me pause this so I can figure out what it was called. Yeah, I bought Fling to the Finish. On the recommendation of Swingle. Looks like a fun little, goofy little co-op type of thing. Not much to report on there. But when it comes to Steam games at this point, by and large, what I'm buying is these silly, sort of small experiences that I can play for a while and move on. And that's what this looks like. So there you have it. One thing that kind of sucks is like a go-to whenever they have these type of sales is Pinball FX. Right? And it's been around in one form or another for ages. It used to be Pinball FX2. You'd go and they sell the pinball tables individually, they're usually kind of overpriced, but you get them on the sale, you get a good deal. Then Pinball FX2 was retired in favor of Pinball FX3. The same sort of thing would happen. And then somewhere along the line, I didn't notice it, but Pinball FX3 was retired for what they're just calling Pinball FX. And let me just say, this trend that's going on of like long franchises just dropping the number and pretending the latest one is the first one, I hate this. I hate it when people do this. Xbox did it with the Xbox One. Dungeons and Dragons is doing it with their new One D&D. And now, of all things, Pinball FX. So let me just say, not a big fan of that whole naming convention. But I was disappointed that they retired Pinball FX3, and I was even more disappointed that the game that they made in its wake, Pinball FX, did not have anything on sale. So not a great sale for pinball fans, If you're a pinball fan, I guess your best bet was doing the GOG sale and getting the Pinball Dreams / Pinball Fantasies collection for whatever they're selling that for, which I'm sure is for pennies. All right. We're back to present day. So I wanted to play another chiptune, but not from the top 40. I have recently started messing around with Mastodon. And if you've never done Mastodon, it's like Twitter, but it's decentralized. And it feels like starting from scratch again. And I've enjoyed it very much. So one of the things I've started following on Mastodon was a bot that posts SID sound chip music over and over and over again. I don't care if I don't meet real people, if I'm screaming into the darkness. This SID music bot on Mastodon is it, man. It's great stuff. The only problem I'm running into is it's posting the tracks in MP4 format, and I need to download a library to convert them, or I need to run it through VLC and convert it that way. And it's not. It makes the tool chain too big to make it a sustainable process, right? The job process needs to be, the workflow needs to be shorter in order for me to really be able to play those tracks on the air. But it's a shame, man. I'm still looking into it because this one bot has been good enough to keep me going back to this little social media. I say little, but it's a big deal. This alternate social media platform. So there you go. So there's Mastodon. So if you go to Mastodon, the Mastodon social, and you look up Tiger Claw TV, there's me sitting back in my chair. I took that picture was that at the beach? Where was that? No, that was camping. I took that at a Boy Scout camping trip. There's me sitting back in my lawn chair at the Boy Scout camping trip. That's why I was so relaxed, because I was just letting the kids do everything. Yeah, good times. All right, so let's see. Let me see if I have anything saved locally that I can play in its place. All right, we'll go old again. This is not a chip tune, but this was during my plunderphonic phase. This is from Desco Radio Club. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Yes, we are just about at the 20-minute mark, just shy of it. This is the part of the show where I like to thank the sponsors. It is a Patreon-sponsored program, and to them I offer, I read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. That's the honor that I offer them. They are Hemrock, Darabka, EmeraldRangers.com, and Tecmoballs. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for supporting the show, and I hope you're enjoying the party. That said, let's shift gears. We're going to head over to an email I got from Hemrock, and I realize the 20-minute mark is a little bit early to do Failbag, but he wrote one of his big ones. He's got a lot of good stuff in here, and I want to see what he's got to say. All right, bear with me while it comes up here. All right. He says, all right, back again. Hemrock here. Thanks, CF, for another episode of TCR. It's great to have you back after a bit of a break. You know what? Give me a second. Let me blow that font up. There we go. I hope you had a sappy. Jeez. Man, come on, Alex. Get it together. Let's try this again. I hope you had a happy and safe 4th of July. I finally finished the next part of the top 8 of the first 8 Final Fantasies. Please see attached. I have not listened to this. Oh my goodness. We're in for a treat. We will go through that. You know what? Okay, so he doesn't mention it in the rest of his email. So I can do the email, then we can hear his bit, and then I'll get back to, and then we'll go from there. Okay. I want to make a clarification to the story behind the top 40 of the 8-Bit Collective. While I did listen to about 99% of the songs on the archive, there were a handful of those tracks whose titles were so crass, I merely skipped over them. Additionally, the vast majority of the time, I did not listen to the whole song. That's fair enough. Usually I can tell within the first 10 seconds whether I'm going to like it or not. Going through the list this way dramatically sped up the process. All right, I'm going to stop there. But before you jump all over Hemrock, having listened to a bunch of 8-Bit Collective tracks, you were dealing with like the best of the best mixed in with people who just downloaded Family Tracker for the first time 10 minutes ago. So you would have like really good songs, you know, between 10 songs that were just like the same loop over and over again for a minute and a half. So I didn't realize that, but that's definitely the right way to do it. All right, let's get back to the email and see what else he's got to say. So what did you end up picking up on the Steam Marines and Guggenheimer summer sales? Did you buy the Silver Box Anthology? No, I didn't, and I got a couple days left to fix that, but I haven't. I haven't quite pulled the trigger on anything, but I'm eyeing Micro Mages. They include easy access to the ROM, as well as the TMNT Cowabunga Collection and the Neo Geo Pocket Collection Volume 2. I'm basically looking for ROM dumps of old console handheld games. I just realized that the Pico Interactive has re-released the Iridon 2. This is a highly acclaimed shmup for the GBA. I love good old Pico. They are a perfect contrast to limited run games. Just get the games out there in digital format at a reasonable price. Okay, for this paragraph, I have Micro Mages. It's good. It is good. I bought it on Steam a sale or two ago, and it's exactly what you say it is. They include the ROM so that you can load it onto your POW Kitties, your Ambernix, your this, your that, whatever it is, you can play it. Nice little scrolling platformer. It's tough, but yeah, it's good. Good game. Let's see. He says, you spoke about Final Fantasy games getting pulled from Steam, and I believe you're correct. Square wants to focus its attention on the Pixel remaster editions. Therefore, it is more difficult, if not impossible, to purchase the older Android versions, which I believe were on Steam at one point in time. Nevertheless, the Square tax is still alive and well. Similarly, I noticed today that the original Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is not available on Steam, only the HD version. If you want the classic version, you need to turn to GOG. Thank goodness GOG still has it. Not the first game. Was it the first game? Okay, when I opened my GOG account, I can't remember if the first game I ever bought was the original Postal or if it was Heroes of Might and Magic 3. But it was one of the first games I ever got on GOG, was Heroes 3, so that I could play it local multiplayer with Yuri. And I don't think I've touched it since, but I definitely never got it on Steam. Yeah, I hate it when they get rid of original versions in favor of HD versions. Look, I know that in some cases the HD version like actually makes it better, but you still have access to the original. Like, for example, Doom, right? Bethesda remade Doom. They gave it a nice modern coat of paint. When you buy it on Steam, that's what you get. You get this fancy new, 2012, 2011, more recently, like 2019, something like that. Whenever they remade it, you get this fancy new version of Doom, an old game from the 90s. But when you install it and you launch it, you get the choice. You can still launch that regular, version if you want. You still get that old version if that's your taste. And I think that's important. And a lot of these companies, when they remake their games, they don't do that. But back to the email. This is, recently I picked up an old At Games Legends flashback. It's got 50 built-in games, mostly from the arcade. You also have the ability to sideload with an SD card. Whoa. What does, and I'm going to stop the email here, the At Games Legend flashback, what system is that? Give me a second. Is that Atari? At Games Legend flashback. Boom. 50 games, $50. Mostly arcade. It's a little emulation machine. Okay. Little legit emulation game. Nice. All right, let's get back to the email. 50 built-in games, mostly from the arcade. You also have the ability to sideload with an SD card. I saw it cheap on eBay, sent a lowball offer that the seller surprisingly accepted without a counter. It's a nice piece of kit, and I see it as a beater console for the kids. Yes, everybody needs a beater console. Lately, they've been playing the Retron 5, which has my nice 8-bit DOE wireless controller synced to it, and for whatever reason, the kids can't seem to stop dropping the controller. I feel you there, man. Kids and equipment. It's not a good mix, but kudos to you for, making the games available. Because if you lock them behind closed doors, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. All right. Well, it wouldn't be the end of the world if the controller broke. It's one of the nicer controllers I own. It cost about $45 to replace. So now I have an entire console for them that cost me about $25 shipped. Includes 2 controllers. That should be getting here in a few days, so we'll see. That is awesome, man. Perfect solution. I'm interested to know, since it's mostly arcade stuff, what they settle on actually playing when you fire it up. But back to the email. He says, something happened to me recently that hasn't happened in a while. Well, I got a hankering to play Master of Magic, the original DOS version, not one of those newfangled renditions. I took some time to investigate different patches for the game. It was probably a little after 10 p.m. when I told myself I would just install the game, patch it, quickly test it to make sure if it works, turn off the PC. Well, before you know it, I'm playing the Master of Magic for hours. I checked the time, and it was nearly 2 in the morning. Suffice to say, I only got 5 hours of sleep that night, and it was totally worth it. DOS gaming between about 1992 to 1996 was golden. That was the nigh-perfect PC strategy gaming era. Master of Magic, XCOM, UFO Defense, Colonization, Command & Conquer Red Alert, Master of Orion 2, Civilization 2, Dune 2. I don't know why I'm attracted to sequels. Have you ever had an experience like that where you literally lost track of time for hours? If so, with what game/games? You know what else came out in that era? The Legacy, that game I was talking about earlier in the show. But yes, that's happened to me. That happened to me today, actually. It's 1:30 in the afternoon now. I sat down to start recording at 9, and something possessed me. Don't know what. Something possessed me to reinstall Saints Row 3. And I just lost about 3 hours just thinking I'd fire it up, play the Horde mode minigame that comes with it. And I 3 hours. Saints Row 3 is a good game. That is the most recent example. Yes, I've had experiences like that. They a lot of them centered around Civilization, particularly in the era when I was first getting into it. That would happen, particularly with Civ 3. Okay, hang on one second here. Okay. Thanks for your recommendations on Atari Age homebrews. For the moment, I think I'm going to pass on those carts. Some of these games are made by Champ Games, which still offer ROM-only purchases for less. Well, there you go, man. ROM-only purchase. Let's check this out, because he put a link on there. I know how you are. You love the emulation machines, but everything is legit no matter what. And by the way, I'm not sure if I've gone over this on the air or not, but all the respect in the world for maintaining that policy. So let's see. Galagon, Zookeeper. Okay, so they're still a little on the pricey side. Champ Games Mappy, the ROM, $20. Yeah, that is pricey. Video format, NTSC. This is just the ROM. Yeah, ROM file. I wonder if it varies depending on there's demos. You can download the demo. Demo ROM for an Atari. That I have to see. Yeah, but sure enough, on the other hand, price, what it is. Here's Mappy. Here's a Mappy ROM that you can download and play. And for what system? Is this Atari? I can't even tell. Champ Games. That's got to be Atari 2600. That's cool, man. Primarily for the Atari 2600. Champ for the 2600. Gorf Arcade, Wizard of War. Those are already 2600 games. Did they make them better? I wonder if they were like games that were released on 2600 that people just didn't like. I have Wizard of War, though. That's a good game. I think I might even have 2 copies of that one. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the email and see what else he's got. If you buy an Atari cartridge, you're buying a stone tablet in video game history. CF. Well said, my friend. Yeah, and I stand by that one. I do indeed. Yes, I remember good old Triverse. What a guy. While we're on the subject of Triverse, he's still around. He is on Facebook these days, and he posts dad jokes. And I don't mean just like posting the joke. He posts a video of himself telling the dad joke, and he does like 5 a day. It's really quite impressive. And knowing Triverse, I bet he's got some angle. Like he must be making ad revenue or making those Facebook bucks or something. But he's still hustling, man. He's still doing his thing. Finally, he signs off the email with, what piece of gaming hardware has most impressed you by exceeding your expectations? For me, it was the Retron 5. For me, the Retron 5 and the V90 come to mind. Man, that's a really good question. Now, you said gaming hardware. You didn't specify, retro or remake or anything, but the 2 that you listed, Retron 5 and V90, those are both, they're both modern pieces of hardware. I don't know about most impressed me. I can tell you the RG505 has taken my household. Everyone in my house loves the Amronic RG505. As soon as I crossed over from OpenDingix handhelds into Android, suddenly it was like, oh, that thing can play game that I know of. Do you know what I mean? And it stopped being one of those devices that Dad has that plays games from 50 years ago or whatever. So that one is the most popular in my house. For me, I'm really, really fond of the Retron 1 AV. Even with its limited capabilities, it's just an NES clone, and it's just the AV cable. It doesn't even have HDMI. But man, they got that controller right, and that is really difficult to do. Even with like the weird colors, like I know we've talked about this, and you're not like a big fan of the funny colors. I don't know. I think they really did a good job on that Retron. That got me playing my NES again, and I hadn't really played the NES anything serious quite a long time. So there you go. That is a good one. Another one that impressed me, you said the V90. Now I will say the RG250V or 280V. That's the little red one. Yes, it feels weird in my hands, but that system has got the build quality, like the best build quality in a handheld period I've ever felt, ever, is in the 280V. I wish it were a better system, and I know there might be better out there that I just haven't gotten, but I gotta say, I am impressed. Yeah, so that's it. Keep rolling retro Hemrock. So he added the 6th spot on his list. So I'll tell you what. Let's listen.
Now for number 6 of the top 8 of the first 8 Final Fantasy games, and that 6th spot goes to Final Fantasy 1. Yes, the original Final Fantasy. This is the only Final Fantasy game that I have beaten more than once. I've actually beaten this one 3 times. I first played the NES version. I also beat it on the PS1, the remaster, which is rather nice, if I do say so myself, and I do recommend it. I'm a little surprised it doesn't get more notoriety. And then I also played the GBA, or the Game Boy Advance Edition. Although the latter one, I played a hack of the GBA game called the Mod Balance. This one gives you an option of 12 character classes, many of which are new to this first game. I do recommend that Mod of Balance, and I'll talk more about hacks later on. Final Fantasy I lays the foundation for the story of Final Fantasies to come. For instance, it introduced multiple themes that you'll see throughout later Final Fantasy games, to include Four Light Warriors, crystals, open world exploration, saving the world, a medieval setting, including castles, kings, swords, and sorcery. And one of my favorite tropes of the Final Fantasy series, airships. I love that little airship sprite that's floating through, flying through the Final Fantasy games on the NES. Now, when I first played the game, I didn't quite understand the storyline, and I didn't really seem to care. Now I feel that I have a little bit of a better understanding. And you start with four generic heroes of your choosing, and you go on one extended scavenger hunt comprised of a number of fetch quests, culminating in a convoluted time paradox. Even the first Final Fantasy had a bit of a crazy storyline, believe it or not. But Final Fantasy 1 had some excellent game design. For instance, I appreciate how the game used well-placed story events or vehicles to slowly open the world map. Spoiler alert, at the beginning of the game, your job is to fight Garland to save the princess. And once you save the princess, the king will repair a bridge, which opens access to more of the world. So they restrict you to this one little area where you can't wander away and get lost. Hopefully, you're able to figure out by talking to the NPCs where to go, what to do. That's almost a tutorial within itself, as opposed to a more in your face tutorial that we experience today. This is more of, hey, I respect you as a gamer. I think you're an intelligent person. Here you go. I'm not going to hold your hand, but I've got this small little sandbox that you can play around in. And once you figure that out and you've mastered those mechanics, I'm going to have an NPC open up another part of the world. And I think that's just fantastic. That's smart game design. But the game is obviously not perfect, and by today's standards, the battle mechanics are quite rudimentary. Some annoyances include the necessity to grind, something that I don't particularly mind. The interface is basic, buying multiple items is tedious, inventory is limited, management of said items is clunky. Plus, in the NES version, the game does not give you the courtesy of showing you when a chest is open or closed. Now, Final Fantasy is known for its turn based battles, and the first game is no exception. The way it presented itself, to my understanding, was something that was new at the time. The game was released in December of 1987 in Japan, and this was one of the first games, if not the first game, where you could see your party members on one side of the screen and the enemies on the other. And the battle animations would actually change based on what was equipped. This was innovative at the time. There's also no auto targeting. And what I mean by auto targeting is that if you're attacking a monster and you designated all four of your characters to attack that one monster, and the first character kills it, the other three characters will still try to attack it even though it no longer exists, and therefore their attack would be ineffective. This has been a well known complaint of the first Final Fantasy, at least on the NES, but I see it as a positive because it forces you to pay attention during the battle instead of spamming one button over and over. Another thing that's a little different with in the first game compared to some of the others is that there's no MP. It's all based on charges. As you level up, you get more charges for lower level spells. So you might have a level 1 spell where you have 8 charges, but a level 3 spell where you only have 3 charges. So sometimes the magic can be very limited, especially early on in the game. And if you're not as familiar with where you're going or how expansive the dungeon is, you may be hesitant to use your magic because you don't want to waste it at the beginning and not have it available when you need it later on in the dungeon. Although this may be seen as something negative, it can also be seen as something strategic. Also, keep in mind when the NES game, it was sold with tips and stats. So when you found a certain enemy, you could look up what their HP was. When you got into certain areas, you had a map to know where to go. So if you think of it from that perspective, you may be better able to appreciate the difficulty of the game and realize it wasn't perhaps as cutthroat as what some people experience when they just have the cartridge. Now, to some degree, this is a bare bones type of console RPG, and it's easy to mod, relatively speaking, into other experiences. And that's a huge reason that I rank it above Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy IV, which got the 8th and 7th spot, respectively. And I'm not simply referring to bug fixes and reskins. No, I'm alluding to mods that change the game into a significantly better experience or completely new experience, such as Dragoon X Omega 2. Other great hacks include Final Fantasy Ultra Championship Edition, Final Fantasy Plus Plus, Final Fantasy Epica, and even Frank Fantasy. Another one of my favorite elements of this game is the fact that you can create your own customized party from the beginning. This not only allows for experimentation, creativity, and replay value, but also changes the challenge of the game. Do you want an easy playthrough? Then hit up 2 fighters, a black mage, and a white mage. Are you an RPG masochist? Well, why not try 4 mages? The choice is up to you. You name your party. You can use your own imagination to fill in the blanks of the story. You know, kind of like role playing. Now, I want to talk about an interesting gaming myth, one that I'm not sure I know the exact answer to. And that is, how did Final Fantasy get its name? The one that I had heard for years, and you've probably heard this story before too, is that the name Final Fantasy came from the attempt of creating the game as a last-ditch effort to save a failing company. And it would be the last game if it was not successful. Even Nobuo Uematsu vouched for this story, according to Wired magazine. An alternative interpretation of the Final Fantasy myth is that Sakaguchi was intending to leave Square to go back to college, and he had time for one game, and so he knew this would be his final game, and he chose Final Fantasy as the name. A third edition of this myth that I just recently stumbled across is that Sakaguchi wanted to make a game with a title that could be abbreviated FF in English. The original name was Fighting Fantasy. Unfortunately, this was taken by another IP and was eventually changed to Final Fantasy. I would love to hear from you guys if you happen to know which one of those versions of the myth is the correct version. And I'll leave you with a piece of trivia. My actual internet name is an anagram of Warmech from the original Final Fantasy game. It's a hidden boss in the last section of the game right before the final boss, Chaos. And the first time I actually used the name Hemrock was on a Final Fantasy forum years ago. And since then, it's kind of just stuck. I hope you stay tuned for number 5 out of the top 8 Final Fantasy games of the 1980s and 1990s.
So as it turns out, that's actually it for the fail bag. I've got nothing on YouTube for last week. And we head over to Emerald Rangers. And they've got an article, Power Rangers Fan Theory and SPD. The SPD, a squad Ranger suits, and Skydad's Ranger Suit Explained. That's by Sendu from yesterday evening. So on the 5th, so 2 days ago. And no comments on the podcast. So I guess that's the fail bag in its entirety. And that, boys and girls, is the show. Whatever it is you're doing this week, take care of yourselves. Be well. I'll see you next time.